your Heart of Darkness TWAs we're going to take a look at here in a moment. So if you have that, you want to take those out because we're going to look at the prompt. Is there anybody, and we're not going to make fun of you, but is there anybody who does not have their prompt with them? Because you're going to want it as a reference point while we go through stuff. We're good. Wow. These are the moments you like dream of. Everybody has their stuff. So we'll take a look at that here in a moment. This declaration of academic integrity, I'll also talk to you here in a moment as well. Heart of Darkness, you're finishing part 3 for Wednesday. Wednesday, you will have a reading check quiz. It's already made, ready to go, not a TWA. 5 questions, 3 points apiece, grand total of 15. The quiz only covers part 3. So it's not testing 1, 2, and 3, but it is solely for part 3. That reading check quiz will also go in as a participation grade. So right now it would be in the same bank of points as the Grapes of Wrath quiz that you had and the 2 rough drafts that we've done so far.
Is it a lot like the other one, like the way it's set up and like 9 questions?
Like the Grapes of Wrath one? No. The Grapes of Wrath one, two things that were rare about that one, very specific, and multiple choice, which I usually don't do. Every now and then, we'll do quizzes like that one where I tell you can take notes and bring them in. You cannot use notes for the Heart of Darkness one. So they're short answer, and I don't want that to sound like mini essay because it's not meant to be, but there's some flexibility leeway with the answers. So depending upon how they're worded, like you can't go the main character is Mertz or something like that, because we know it's Kirsten Marlowe. Although we did have Mertz show up in the TWA, it was like a meld of the two. But you might have different answers than Ben. Both of you could still be getting them correct. So not nearly a specific detail as to what are the ingredients on the sandwich, how many, what's the number of acres that the bank owns, and things like that. So it'll be a little bit different, but more in line with how most of your reading check quizzes for reading assignments go, or open-ended, I guess, might be a better way than saying short answer. That's going to be on Wednesday, and then Thursday night is when, by Thursday night, 11:59 p.m. is the submission of the Grapes of Wrath essay on Turn It In. So if you haven't set up a Turn It In account, and most of you haven't, you want to make sure you take care of that this week. The essay, it's due by 11:59. That's not telling you to wait until 11:59. So, you're ready to submit at 7:30. I'd submit at 7:30 because bad things tend to happen 30 seconds before the deadline. If you're ready to submit tonight, over the weekend you had a chance to finish some things up, you can go ahead and do it. So you don't have to wait until Thursday night by any means to submit it. You would be submitting the essay with the works cited page. You don't have to give me a paper copy of your final copy. So whatever one you're submitting to Turn It In, that's what I'm going to grade. I'm going to grade it electronically through the website, and then you'll be able to see it when they are ready to go. On Friday, and then we said this last week, but on Friday you're going to give me both rough drafts with the peer edits attached. That is going to go in as like a homework participation grade. So Abby submits essay number 1. She's still going to give me rough drafts 1 and 2 with the peer edits for Friday, so you get credit for both of them. So if you're submitting rough draft number, or you're submitting essay number 1, still have someone peer edit essay number 2, so that you can get the credit for that. Along with the rough drafts and the peer edit sheet, you're also going to submit the Declaration of Academic Integrity thing. So that's going to be a package deal that's all going to get turned into on Friday. Friday, you're just going to have it sitting out on your desk. I'll come around and collect them, because on Friday you're going to be taking then your test for the Heart of Darkness, which will be multiple choice. And then we'll be done with that book. Okay, so by this week, Heart of Darkness moves on, and then we go into The Catcher in the Rye next week. On Friday? The test will follow. I could make a Heart of Darkness joke about marriage, but I won't do that. That'd be mean. Congratulations. We'll talk. We'll figure out what will work best. By the way, my 8-year-old made a motivational poster for you for the classroom. So things are tough, but never give up. I like that she goes, things are tough. Not that they may be, but Ben, things are tough. Ignore the comma placement after the conjunction. We're working on things. But notice her illusion. Got that turtle crossing Highway 66. Wearing a top hat. I don't know why, but things are tough, Caleb. Never give up. So that's going to be Friday. Any questions about this stuff other than the declaration thing, because we haven't spoken about that. Okay. Tomorrow, and this is on your weekly syllabus, tomorrow we're going to go over those multiple choice questions from shooting an elephant. So if you can bring your Bedford Reader tomorrow, and then the questions themselves, I have the Scantron because you already turned those in. But if you can give me, or not give me, but if you can bring in the article Bedford Reader and then the multiple choice questions, that'll be good for what we're going to do tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll play with iPads. Yay, fun. Not really, but we'll still play with them anyway. All right, this thing here, which you can't see yet. Ah, you can. Declaration of Academic Integrity. Yours is a little different because it says the Grapes of Wrath at the top. Anytime you have a take-home essay, you're going to get one of these little like kind of pledge things. Okay. Obviously, you can tell a lot of it's based on plagiarism. Take that fairly seriously. I don't think there's anything really new up here, but it's just making sure that you and I are on the same page as to what it would mean if something happens to be plagiarized. So, presentation of someone else's work in whole or in part as your own. The work you're submitting is fully your own. You're not resubmitting previous work, although I don't really think you already did a Grapes of Wrath analysis, but you know, maybe in 5th grade Luke did some pretty impressive things. Because things were tough, but he did not give up, so he's going to keep on going. Reference, consulted, research sources, both print and non-print, are on the works cited page. And you get reference to those things in the next couple. The big thing about the cited sources, and by you citing it does not mean it's a loss of points. Abby?
For reference sources, like I would use like the source website, like that.
Yes. Okay. And that's fine. Like, the fact that you use the source, I don't have a problem with it. I just want to get you in the habit of, if it's something that you reference, you would cite. So let's say you end up using the word. Like you want to use the word creepy, you can't think of something, you do the thesaurus at dictionary.com, you come up with the term ominous. Okay, and you like that one. You would cite ominous as the page, dictionary.com. If you have questions about how to cite it, let me know. It would be cited on your works cited page, and then at the end of the sentence, it would be cited. Maybe you are using, you can't find your examples that you want to use, so you find a source that gives you some imagery quotes within the Grapes of Wrath. You would therefore then cite that source. The onus is still on you to explain it and explain how that imagery works with whatever that argument is that you're coming up. But if you are using any kind of source beyond your brain to help you formulate your ideas, that gets cited. This is not a guilt trip. This isn't a competition to see who will have the most sources, on their works cited page. But you need to get in the habit of cited, referenced, consulted things that you use. Now, if you sat down and you did the whole thing using your brain and your book and the notes, then certainly you will only cite the book. I'm not asking you to cite like YouTube videos of me going over spa and diddles with you. I don't need to get my name on a works cited page. That's still in-class stuff. But if you're going beyond the book, then you need to cite it. That doesn't mean that you're going to lose 1 point for every time dictionary.com shows up. You're not losing a point for every time SparkNotes shows up. But if you use the source, make sure you cite it. The same thing would kind of be down below. The extent to which I have worked with others as follows. There is no reason why any of you will leave this blank. You should have at least 2 people, because you had 2 people peer edit your rough drafts. So if the same 2 people peer edited both drafts, their names are going to show up on there. Lexi peer edited draft number 1, and draft number 2. Kaylee helped me brainstorm my spa, whatever. You might have had sibling help you. You might have had senior from last year that you were fervently looking for during cafeteria to find out how in the world I'm going to grade this essay and to kind of give you some tips. So again, it's not a loss of credit for there not being any names on here. If down the road, I would expect that there's still going to be names even if we're not peer editing, because I just want to know who you're getting not who you're getting ideas from. That's a negative. I want to know who you're bouncing ideas with. So if Jack is having a rough go of it with some essays,
and this area is always blank, might want to go, Jack, it might be a good idea to start talking to some people. You know, me and some others who could certainly help you. So the extent to which you've worked with others, it could be peer editing, it could be brainstorming, but, you know, fill it out. Again, not a guilt trip, but it's good to kind of just keep track of who's helping, and help is certainly a good thing to have. It even could be, I met with Mr. Kane during homeroom because I didn't know what to do for my second body paragraph kind of thing. Again, I'm not looking to see how many times my name would show up on there. And then down at the bottom, you know, your name, signature, and date. This always gets submitted like the day after the essay would be due. So you're not going to give it to me on Thursday because you still might be doing some things on Thursday before you submit. So on Friday, this would get submitted with the rough drafts. Yes, it is a declaration of the integrity so far as the plagiarism at the top, but it's also then a record of just you identifying, you know, folks who have been helpful, useful, hopefully helpful and useful through the collaboration, the writing of your essay. We don't do things like this for the Heart of Darkness TWAs type stuff because I think that's fairly obvious. You're writing it by yourself. The extent to which you did work with others on a TWA, that would be an issue we'd have to address kind of later on. But again, not a guilt trip, not a form of entrapment. I do want you to be clear as to what plagiarism is, and I do want you to kind of get in the habit of recognizing those things and understanding the significance of you attaching your name with it. Anybody have any questions? So Friday, that just gets turned in with the rough drafts and the peer edit sheets. You okay, Luke?
Yeah.
Okay. It looked like you were pondering, ready to speak something.
No, I was just looking you in the eye.
Okay. Any questions? All right. Heart of Darkness. TWAs. This page is in your course syllabus. It's over 2 pages. I just have the 1 page on here that has the 9 going down to the 5 minus, I believe. This isn't meant to be bad news or, you know, a euphemism for your essays are terrible. I curved your essays. I knew I was going to curve them when you were taking them. I knew I was going to curve them before you took them. So it's not a byproduct of, wow, they needed some help, let's bump them up. Your first essay assignment, I always curve. This was your first. Your second essay assignment, I do a slight curve. It's the one you're going to be turning in on Thursday. Everyone's score was inflated 1 full number. So if it says 5 plus, it was a 4 plus. If it says 8, it was a 7. That's not meant to be a punch to the gut or a, wow, that sucks. It's just reality. It was your first TWA, it was your first essay, you're still kind of going through the process and thinking about it. So I don't want anyone going, well, that's terrible, and I may as well just go see Mrs. Burns right now and do a course change. But the first one was just inflated. It's not a big deal. Your second one, and percentage-wise, that would mean in Power School 6 points. Would have been the jump up. Because if you had a 7 minus, that would be an 86, but it would have gone in as an 8 minus, a 92. If it says a 6, you would have had an 82. A 5 is a 76, so 6 points uniform jump. For your Grapes of Wrath essay, I'm going to do a 1 level. So a 7 plus would be an 8 minus, a 6 will be a 6 plus, a 2 will be a 2 plus. I don't envision 2s taking place, but you know, you never know. So it would be a 2% increase. After that one, it's, you know, we're going regular scale with no kind of inflations occurring. Again, it's something that I have done probably for the last 8, 9, maybe even 10 years. It's nothing indicative of the quality of work that came in. I'm not worried about that. So far as how the writing scale goes, which numbers really kind of jump out when you look at the writing scale, whether it be within your course syllabus or here? Like right now, I'd say 2 scores jump out, 8 and 6. We talk about AP exam and score, you know, all year long. AP exam, your score is 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. 5 being the highest, 1 being the lowest. Anything at a 3 or higher, and those of you that took World AP history are familiar with this, anything 3 or higher is considered passing. All of your essays, there's 3 of them, all of your essays are scored on a 1 to 9 scale, 9 being the highest, 1 being the lowest. So we talk about 3 being passing, but then a 3 on your essay is not really a good sign
as you can tell by the percentage that goes along with it. On the essays, 5 is the lowest passing score. You will not, on an AP exam, be getting anything like pluses and minuses going along with your score. You would get a 9, an 8, a 7, a 6, a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I put in the pluses and the minuses because it gives me flexibility. Not all 5s are equal, not all 6s are equal. So if I give you a 7 plus, that means, or if you earn a 7 plus, that means on the AP exam, I'm telling you it's still in that 7 range, but it's on the high end. It's knocking on the door of an 8. If you're at a 6 minus, it's still a 6 on the AP exam, but it's getting close to that other level of going closer to a 5. So it gives you a better understanding of where within that room of the house of 7 you're in, but it also is a way to know I'm pretty close to that 8 or I'm pretty close to going back down to a 6. 5 and higher are considered passing, but the 8, which is in bold and then has this description with it, the 6, the 4, the 2, those are considered anchor scores. Anything that is 8 or higher means it's effective. Anything that's 6 or higher means it's adequate, which is a terrible word, but that's the College Board word. 4 means inadequate, 2 means little success. So the first thing I do when I would be reading an essay, I take a look at Jordan's essay, I'm reading it, I'm going, this is adequate. That means she's at a 6, at least. If I go effective, now I know I'm getting up into the all 8 category. Luke, Matt, stay with me. So that's the first part I do. Is it little success, inadequate, adequate, successful, or effective? Then from there, I'm able to kind of put it into the different categories, and we'll go into more detail as it goes on. The one thing that kind of surprises people is a 6 is adequate, but what's a passing score on an AP exam? It's a 5. So technically, a 5 is not fully adequate. Kaylee, you're not fully adequate, but it's still good enough. A 5 means it's really kind of on the fence. It has some plus going for it. It has some good qualities, but there's also a little bit of negative. So it's uneven. It's not balanced. It's not necessarily complete. Whereas if it's inadequate, if it's a 4, there's not enough to tell that the person understood the prompt, understood the passage, and was be able to argue that. Ultimately, a 6 is what we'd be looking for, at least to make it adequate, but a 5 still can be passing. So that inconsistent or unevenly developed tends to be a hallmark of a 5. They got it in some parts, but they're not getting it in the other parts, but you can tell they know what they're supposed to do. That's kind of where that 5 ultimately takes place. But the pluses and the minuses we use throughout the year, but that's not something that would be showing up on an AP score. It's all new, it's different, completely understand. Any questions at this point? Content reigns supreme. Okay, the argument. A 9 is not flawless, so there could certainly still be some issues so far as spelling or punctuation. Doesn't mean it's perfect, but it is an effective argument, it's sophisticated, control of language is top notch. What can sometimes be a little tough is you could have an adequate argument that is superbly written. The language is wonderful, but the argument's adequate. It can't go higher than a 7. But you could have an effective argument, but Jack's just terrible when it comes to picking words. He didn't use thesaurus.com working on that rough draft. His language might not be as sophisticated as Abby's, but his score could be higher because his argument is effective. So there are some nuances that we'll look at throughout the course of the year. You're certainly going to be writing a lot of essays. You're going to be grading essays and scoring them and whatnot. So you'll get some practice with it. But this is the score sheet that we always kind of come back to with it. All right. On the AP exam, your essays make up 55% of your grade, of your score. The multiple choice is 45%. So they're fairly even, but a little bit more emphasis goes on the way of the essay. So, other than, I hate you, Mr. Kane, what were you thinking when you took a look at the prompt last Tuesday? Hopefully you were thinking, things are tough, but I will not give up. Top hats are awesome. So,
Prompt itself. Read the following passage from part 2 of the Heart of Darkness, then well-organized essay, analyze rhetorical devices used in Marlowe's description to characterize Kurtz. Prompt itself, not even passage. What are we noticing? What were we thinking? Reactions, all that stuff. Pretty short, pretty simple, but still could be a little complex in some ways. Okay. Hopefully you went, I know that. Did you go, I know that? Or I know those? At some point then, whether it be after reading that, many of you, hopefully, started doing this. You know, diddles, rhetorical devices, I want to kind of keep track of those things. Diction, imagery, details, figurative language, syntax. Anytime you get a prompt, whether it be in class or it be on an AP exam, which would be in this same format, by all means, write on it, mark it up, circle, underline, star, whatever the case may be. No highlighters allowed on the AP exam.
Wow.
I know that's going to be painful. Yeah, on the AP exam, for any of the tests, you're not allowed to use a highlighter. Now, you can still annotate, you can still highlight in the sense of mark things, but you cannot use a highlighter. Reason, I don't know, but you're not allowed. For multiple choice, this isn't going to be a surprise. You're going to be using a pencil because it's like a Scantron type thing. When you do your essays are actually going to be written in pen, which is not necessarily a bad thing. The main reason being, if it's in a writing booklet and it's pencil, it's going to smear a lot more easily. Also, if you're left-handed, anyone in here left-handed besides me? Life is good to be left-handed, except when you're writing because it gets all over the bottom of your hand. That doesn't happen as much. Some folks are going, I make mistakes. Yes, we all do. Good. Things are tough, but we don't give up. You make a mistake, you cross it out. If something is crossed out, that is not part of your score. Some of you, and again, doing pencil was fine, you wrote a paragraph and then you went, wait a minute, I want to add something, so you wrote a sentence and then you drew an arrow to where it goes. That's fine. You can do that in pen or pencil. The nice thing about pen, it's actually easier to write with. Your writing booklet has about 20 pages in it, so there's a little bit of a cushion to it. You don't have to press down with pen as hard as you do with pencil. The ink just kind of flows out. You don't have to worry about sharpening a pencil, in the middle of it. So you don't have to write your TWAs yet in pencil. We'll start asking you to do it in pen later on, but it is not a problem. It should not be a concern. You don't have to worry about not being able to erase. What else with the passage? Rhetorical devices. I'm glad we noticed that because that's critical. It'd be pretty nerve-wracking if it was asking you to synthesize sources and you're going, I haven't done that yet. What else? I'd say there's definitely one other part you would want to be aware of with the prompt. Yeah, Marlowe's description to characterize Kurtz. And I'm going to use a highlighter because it's not an AP exam. There is a problem with the argument, imagery and metaphor characterize Kurtz, if that ended up being your thesis statement. Because characterize in itself is a general term. The hope is then that by reading the passage, what are you able to decide? How Marlowe ends up characterizing Kurtz, or how Conrad characterizes Kurtz through Marlowe and the description that takes place. So as you then start reading the passage, certainly you want to take note of where there's information support that is giving you an idea as to the type of character that Kurtz would be. You don't need to worry about figuring out rhetorical devices yet. You're just looking for examples that will help you determine the type of character that Kurtz is. So what are some examples to help you determine the kind of guy that Kurtz is? They could be the ones that you used, or they could be things that you took note of that you did not use within the essay. What are some stuff that you found, some examples?
The part where he's talking about his ball and says like ivory.
Okay, early on here in the beginning,
Yeah, it's the first part.
impressively bald, and then like a ball of ivory. Yep, good. Again, we're not saying we're using it, but we're certainly getting a characterization or a physical description of them at this point. So that certainly could be noteworthy. What else? And we don't have to go in chronological order. We can jump all over the place with it. Jack broke the ice for us.
On like line 33, it said he had taken a high seat of one.
Okay. High seat amongst the devils of the land. And the next part, I mean literally. Like, he's up there with them. If there was any doubt, that's been taken care of. What else? Carol?
The way like he says like my ivory, my intended.
Okay. Up above it. Everything belonged to him. Oh, not intended. Okay, good. What else?
Some birds talking about like his parents' nationalities and like all of Europe would be the only.
Okay, the original Kurtz had been educated partly in England. Mother was half English, father was half French. All of Europe contributed to him. Yep, good. Bald guy, educated.
950. It's talking about what it is suffered by outer darkness.
And then going, no fool ever made a bargain, going up to the top for his soul with the devil. The fool was too much of a fool, or the devil too much of a devil. I don't know which. So you're still getting then those kind of references again, coming back to what I think Olivia had mentioned before. So devil, darkness, not necessarily positive connotation quite yet. What else? Anything positive? I mean, we got a lot of negative things coming about them. Any positive things, Jordan?
I think this is like his writing since it was eloquent.
Mm-hmm. I think we're beautiful piece of writing here in 86, opening paragraph. Now strikes me as ominous, so again, it kind of becomes a little negative. But down at the bottom, it made me tingle with enthusiasm, which generally seems to be positive. Olivia, did you have another example? Same thing. Okay. What else? Doesn't have to be positive, but just anything in general. Any words that you came across and you weren't sure what they were? I'm thinking of one in paragraph or column 2, line 67. Some may not, because it's not a typo. Do you know what a wraith is?
Is it like a ghost?
Yeah, it's like a phantom, like a being. So some folks I think might have been going, is that a way of trying to say wrath or whatnot? But this initiated wraith from the back of nowhere honored me with its amazing confidence before it vanished altogether. So that vanish would kind of go along with the wraith idea. Phantom, ghost, supernatural being. What else? Anything else that you noticed about the passage that you might not go, this characterizes Kurtz, but just characteristics of the passage in general? For example, we had the my ivory, my intended, my ivory, my station, my river. Carol, was it you that mentioned that one? So a lot of folks did take a look at this one with the repetition. Any other words repeating that might characterize Kurtz, might not? And I'd say some you could argue are within that passage. Jack's first example, Carol's example.
It's 143 and 44. It says utter solitude and utter silence.
Okay.
It actually says solitude and silence.
Or the other, there we go, down there. So there's some parallel structure happening, repetition of utter, not like cows. What I word keeps coming up? First column, more so than the second. Just like it's dome. You got ivory here, ivory keeps occurring over and over again, which starts to make sense since we kind of know he is trying to get ivory. What's happening in this part? I mean, you can't understand. How could you, line 35, with solid pavement under your feet, surrounded by kind neighbors ready to cheer you or to fall on you, stepping delicately between the butcher and the policeman, in the holy terror of scandal and gallows and lunatic asylums. How can you imagine what particular region of the first ages a man's untrammeled feet may take him into by the way of solitude, that utter solitude and silence? What's kind of going on with that passage?
They're like kind of describing like the anarchy that like surrounds the Congo. So there's not really like a government or anybody like actually taking authority.
What is the, you're absolutely correct. What is one of the main things that keeps people in check within a society? Police, laws, repercussions, consequences. If I'm driving down the street, I can't go, there's Matt, turn the wheel suddenly to the left, boing, bounces off. There's going to be repercussions. What repercussions would Kurtz have in the Congo for what he does? Essentially, absolutely none. So you can't judge him the same way that I can judge him or the way that I can view him because you don't understand what the situation is like. And it's not that he's necessarily going, he is a great person because of it, but the roles that he is dealing with are a little bit different than the roles that other people deal with. One of the concepts that comes back, is he is a remarkable man. And generally, we think of remarkable as being a positive connotation. He's a good guy. I wouldn't necessarily go that Marlowe's going, he's a good guy, but you can't judge him the way you would judge your typical average person. Based on examples that we have highlighted, or examples that we don't yet, what now rhetorical devices do you start seeing that you could potentially use that would help you characterize the character of Kurtz? So like the stuff that we already have highlighted, what is it? Or other examples out there, what could they be? Okay, like where would help you?
The high sea among the devils, and then being sullied by the powers of darkness.
So darkness now, so here and here thinking as imagery? Yeah, sure, absolutely, because it's creating that picture in your mind. Some folks are going to go that he had taken a high seat amongst the devils of the land. Some aren't going to use imagery. Some are going to argue it's... I mean, is he really taking a high seat amongst the devils of the land? According to Marlowe, he is, because he goes literally. But in your mind, you're going, this is a comparison. It's an abstract comparison, so it's going to be metaphor. Some of you could argue metaphor. Some could argue imagery. Both can still be correct. Another one where there would certainly be a lot of ambiguity with it, and ambiguity doesn't mean vague or poor. It just means there's multiple interpretations right here. He's referencing France, referencing England, all of Europe contributing. So if he's referencing those places, he is making an allusion. At the same time, some folks are going to read it, all of Europe did not actually contribute into the making of Kurtz. So that is an example of E or H. Exaggeration or hyperbole. Again, it doesn't matter necessarily which one you use, it just matters how you explain it. Now, if Abby were to go, he references France and Great Britain, so it is hyperbole, that's going to be incorrect. But if you explain that by referencing it, he is exaggerating the origin of Kurtz to make a point, absolutely you could go with exaggeration or hyperbole. What do you think, and I didn't keep tally, but I'm just thinking mentally in my mind, what do you think were probably the three most popular rhetorical devices? It's not that I got sick of reading them over and over, and I kind of expected them to be some of the most popular. You want to take a guess for one of them? Sort of. Definitely imagery. Metaphor got mentioned, but not as much as another term, which would still be metaphor. The early on description of Kurtz, there was a lot of people taking a look at the fact that it had caressed him, it had withered him, it had taken him, it had loved him, it had embraced him. Pardon? Diction was the other one I'm thinking about, but for this example, personification, which I have no problem with whatsoever. If a person used personification and metaphor, and Matt, I'm just going to say this since you mentioned metaphor, I probably made a note of be careful, because both terms are kind of going into that same wheelhouse of a metaphor. But something like this absolutely would be personification. Diction also became a popular one. But if you're going to use diction, you certainly have to come up with a specific term that you would use. What type of characterization would you say is occurring with Kurtz? Like, how is Conrad / Marlowe characterizing him? Because you really have to come up with that decision before you decide what your devices are going to be.
I think that is kind of glorifying things.
So if we go with our spa, you've already given us a purpose. Glorify Kurtz as, you want to fill in the blank or let us decide? Okay, maybe we'll just go with that remarkable man. And this would certainly work. I would say more people were going more for the negative sense as, characterizing Kurtz as obsessive or as trying to be all-powerful, kind of omniscient and things like that. So far as diction, people might have been seeing darkness, seeing the devils, the wraith, the utter silence and things like that, ominous diction taking place. Someone had spooky diction, which you wouldn't normally think of spooky as being the adjective used, but hey, in the context of this, it worked. But if you had personification, imagery, and ominous diction, glorify Kurtz as a remarkable man, that would work. Now, I'm hoping, we still got a couple minutes, I'm hoping that someone's going, wait a minute, ominous diction and remarkable man don't necessarily go together, because they don't. Matthew is creepy, devilish, vindictive, obsessive. He's remarkable. What's going on with these two terms, since they don't necessarily match up? What do they do? I think you said the word. Contradict, contrast. There's a fancy J word in your thing that says juxtapose. Marlowe's confused. You could argue contrast are one of the devices that kind of glorify him as being remarkable, but still having negative qualities. So it doesn't have to be addiction, imagery, details, figurative language to necessarily work as a device. Essay goes in folders. Folders can go home, or you can keep them in the bench. It's up to you.